So, John, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
It's great what you're doing at British Growers, but you didn't fall out of a dairy farm in Derbyshire or fall out of a combine in East Anglia. You took we're now getting to this lovely bit of the agricultural sector timing wise of shows. Mark's got a great alliance with the South of England show. Where I am up in Suffolk, we've got the Suffolk shows is coming next week, and we've got lots of cereals and groundswell and lots of trial events. Is our sector from you coming in from the outside in? Is our sector very unusual and having lots of shows and the sort of community basis? Were you quite amused, quite shocked when you came in to see all these shows and events?
There are a lot of shows and events, definitely. Yeah, and I'm still getting confused between the different ones. Of yeah, which one is cereals, which one is fruit focus, fruit net, fruit. Yeah, Festival of Fresh. Yeah,
Yeah.
there are lots of shows. Yeah,
Yeah, actually, John, Mark, you can imagine that someone turning up for cereals and they've double booked themselves, thinking it was pigs or dairy. It's like wait, oh
yeah.
right,
In fact, my very first day was a potato show. Yeah.
was
Um,
it? Okay,
yeah.
okay. We will quiz you a little bit later about potatoes. Right, we're all live. Hello, everyone. My name is Max McGillivray from Beanstalk Global. Mark, do you want to just introduce Talking Leaders? Shall we do it that way around this time?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Max. Yeah, I'm Mark Campbell from AHDB and look after the Agri Leader program. And Talking Leaders is our digital series where we bring some really interesting, inspiring people from outside of UK agriculture and see what we can learn from them to bring into UK agriculture.
And this month we've got John. John, I'm just going to give a bit of a background to yourself and the conversation, especially for the people on the podcast. And we're also live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So, John Walgate, Chief Executive of the British Growers Association. Most of you will be aware of the BGA. It's a phenomenal group, and John, I don't know how you your team juggle all the plates of all the organisations that you look after. So we're going to have a conversation with John, which promises to be a fascinating discussion around leadership, horticulture, and the future direction of British growing. John, with a career spanning senior leadership roles within manufacturing, retail supply, and trade representation, he's going to bring a unique outsider's perspective to UK horticulture, fresh produce agriculture, and as we said earlier, now leads one of the most influential organisations supporting British growers nationwide. In the broadcast, we're going to explore leadership within modern horticulture, the pressures and opportunities facing UK growers, the importance of strong sector representation, and why British growing matters more than ever. And you know that we love this to be interactive. So if you've got questions for John or even for Mark on an AHDB perspective, please feel free to bring them in. So John, we are just saying as we're waiting for the social media to come in that you're out of sector. I think it's a great, I suppose some would say a brave decision for British growers to bring you in as CEO, because a lot of people would have said, oh, we need someone who knows the sector. But actually, I think it's brilliant bringing you in because you've got this level of sophistication from a different sector that you can bring in to perhaps make us even more sophisticated with your learnings. John, would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And most of you will know my predecessor as CEO, Jack Ward. And although I've come in as CEO, Jack stayed with the organisation. So our skills are different and we're very much complementing each other. What did the board want when they looked at me? They wanted somebody who'd run a business. They wanted a bit of commerciality to it. They did want a different viewpoint rather than somebody who'd just been in horticulture all their life, which hopefully I am bringing to the organisation. So yeah, they wanted somebody who had a different experience to Jack, and Jack and I are working together very well.
Yeah. Well said. You're well beyond your honeymoon period, so you're here. Yeah, we've got you for the next 10 years. So Jonathan, I would say, buckle up. Mark, do you agree? Is this if we're not crossing the line here, but it's the same with the AHDB. That so we got a new CEO at the AHDB who's out of sector, and again, that's proving to be very, very beneficial.
Yeah, no, I think it's hugely beneficial because, like John says, it brings a different perspective on looking at challenges, issues, problems, projects, which is the only way that we're going to innovate and push things forward. So I think it's a really, really strong thing to be doing. And again, this is why talking leaders, why we bring people from an outside of the sector into the sector.
But actually, John, on that side, what attracted you to it? Because you could have been oh crikey, a politician, or you could have gone into the arena of sports. You could have gone into another FMCG sector. What attracted you to the mercurial world of agriculture and horticulture?
I guess I never knew what I wanted to do when I was younger. I had no idea. I do envy these people who they've got a calling. I've got a friend who always wanted to be a geologist. Right from being 10 years old, and that's exactly what he did. And he's travelled the world, worked for Rio Tinto. Fantastic. I never knew what I wanted to do. The only thing work is my hobby, and I wanted to do something that I could feel passionate about. And I always felt passionate about my previous career in pet food, and I've always been an amateur grower. I have my own allotment. I grow a lot of my own fruit and vegetables, and horticulture feels like a very noble cause, where hopefully I can do exactly that and make a difference.
Yeah, and we're finding more and more with a number of people that we've had on this this series, especially the younger generation. I'm very blessed to chair the MDS Management Development Services Conference most years, and the younger generation they could go off and be a trader with Goldman Sachs and earn a six-figure salary, but it's almost like they want to do something that's good. And gents, being involved within agriculture, and here it comes, hashtag feeding the nation. It's a very good thing to be involved with. Mark, would you agree?
Yeah, no, definitely it is. It gives you a real strong sense of purpose that connects with a lot of people, because we all need to eat 3 times a day. So I completely understand where John's coming from, and how his connection with horticulture to push that forward.
Yeah, and John, do you want to just give us a bit of a background to British growers, because those that don't know won't understand. Oh, crikey, as I mentioned earlier, the complexity of what you do and the good that you and your colleagues do. Do you want to just give us the elevator pitch for British growers, please?
For British Growers Association, yes, of course. We are in a nutshell, we are an umbrella group working for and supporting all of the different horticultural crop associations in the UK, and there is an association of carrots, an association of onions, an association of potatoes, right down to an association of rhubarb and cucurbits. Because as you've already hit on that word complexity, horticulture is a really broad church, and the issues that one group has got, there is some commonality, but they've all got their own individual challenges. So it makes sense to have an individual crop association, and then British Growers Association sits above them, supporting all of them.
Well done. And one word that we've, Mark, myself and Mark's colleague Isaac have used over the last 3 years, Mark, is collaboration. This is the ultimate collaboration, isn't it, John? Having your umbrella and presumably feeding all that IP, that intellectual horsepower between the various groups, and that networking, John, must be very beneficial all round.
Yeah, it means, I think we punch a lot bigger than our weight, but it does mean we can amplify that message for some of the smaller crops together. And I can't emphasize enough how important that is. You've got to shout your own corner.
Yeah, and especially without crossing the line, we all know that one of the issues that we have within horticulture and agriculture is promoting ourselves. We're all very good at doing what we do, whether it be a dairy farmer or whether it be a celery grower, but we're not marketing experts. But be able to be able to rely on British growers, whether that be on a marketing perspective or on a lobbying perspective, I presume again, John, is very, very beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you touched on as well, some parts of horticulture are having tough times. It shouldn't be like that, should it? When I talked about making a difference, if I can do 2 things in my time in horticulture, it's that people eat more fruit and veg, and that we grow more in the UK. Maybe they're quite grand, maybe I'm optimistic, but if we can just do a bit of that, then I'll be happy with what I've done.
Well done. I attended an event yesterday where, Mark, we had one of your colleagues, Grace from the AHDB there, and she put up this great graph about the most trusted professions in the UK, and number one was doctors, and number two was farmers. Which is great, but again, it's how we get that message out so that people on the farm, again, whether it be a dairy farm or a celery farm in the West Country, they feel proud. They feel that they're actually doing a good thing. Mark, what's the answer to that?
Oh Christ, that's a huge answer. But having said that, out of the massive challenges and adversity that we're in at the moment, surely there's going to be opportunity and change that comes out of that. So let's just watch this space and keep doing the positive work that all of us do, which is great.
Yeah.
Building on, so John, today's title is The Outside Advantage, Rethinking Leadership from Farming and Growing. So you started your career back in the world of accountancy and then moved into pet food. In those early years, what things did you learn, or what did you get taught about businesses succeeding or even failing that still shape how you kind of lead today, and how you use that in your day to day?
Well, I think I said, I never had a plan to become an accountant. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Both my parents are civil servants. I knew I didn't want to do that. If I'd had a choice, I'd have played cricket for Yorkshire. But back in those days, you actually had to be born within the broad acres to represent the county, and I think I'm the only one in my family who wasn't born in Yorkshire. And plus, I'm a really average cricket player. So I went into finance because I thought, left university and thought, accountancy, that's money, isn't it? And money is attractive. So that's why I went into finance. But honestly, what a great grounding for life. Seeing, as you said, seeing businesses succeed and seeing businesses not succeed, even not succeeding just because they run out of cash, not because they're not a good business or they're not profitable, just they run out of working capital. So it's a fantastic grounding that I've taken forward throughout my then commercial career, and I really wish more finance was taught to children, because it isn't, is it?
No.
It would give everybody a much better grounding in life, I think. Or maybe you might say, because I'm an accountant, I would say that, but I definitely think that's the case.
Yeah, and gents, there's also that great picture that you'll see in the likes of the Financial Times, that there'll be some big company announcing how well they're doing, and there's the CEO, and just on his left shoulder is the CFO. There's the John, and quite often the CEO, I was going to swear then, moves off to different things, but there's always the CFO there. It's like they're the rock, they're the foundation. It's the same in any business, John, isn't it? If you don't know your data, if you don't know your money position, you're gonna potentially be out of control.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually moved in pet food whilst I was still working in a finance role.
Okay. And again, we mentioned it earlier, just about this difference between agriculture and the sectors that you're in. When you came into this sector, were you, going to cross the line again, were you surprised how unsophisticated we were, or were you surprised at how sophisticated we were? Where did you sit on that?
My opinion has changed from when I first joined.
Hello.
When I first joined, I thought, well, it's just business, isn't it? And business is business is business is business. You buy, you sell, you move, you have a strategy. But I have changed and think that farming, growing is different. Probably in illustrating that, in my career, I've been involved in 3 fairly major business disposals of privately owned SMEs. And I could probably say to you that the owners who sold those businesses, after they sold them, they probably never thought about those businesses again.
Wow.
I'm sure that absolutely is not the case in agriculture. The people who own the businesses are wedded to it, and that does make a difference. It really does. And I worked for a business that was multi-generational. But when they sold for business reasons, and that was it. Wow. And they probably never looked back.
Wow.
But
Mark,
I don't think that's the case in farming and growing, is it?
no, no, Mark, I was just thinking of some of the examples that we've done external filming on when we've been on someone's ha-ha of the farmhouse, and that's been walking out the posh doors. They're walking out the back doors. All the families out milking the cows, and yeah, for them to Mark, help me with the words here. It's a way. It's different. It's a way of life.
Yeah, it is a way of life, and it's that kind of generational guilt of not failing because you're selling the business, but it's deemed as a negative rather than a positive. I think a good example of this is it's a different mindset, which, and it's no disrespect to our growing and farming industries, that it's not there. But look at the Tom and Karen Holton at Chancellor Farm. We did a Talking Leaders back there a couple of years live from their milk shack. They were tenants. They unfortunately had some of their tenancies at the back end of last year removed from their landlord. So they made the business decision that cow price was really, really good. They didn't have any succession. Their son wanted to move into an alter. He had started his own business and didn't want to continue the dairy. So they made the choice to actually sell the business and to sell the cows and to move in a different direction, which is quite a big thing to be doing.
Yeah, I wouldn't have appreciated that 18 months ago, but I completely appreciate it now.
Yeah.
But
and that's why agriculture and horticulture is special in a good way, and it needs to be helped.
Yeah, and John, with that outside experience that you've got of coming in, is that what yourself and British growers look to do? I suppose sometimes do you end up being a bit of a critical friend, that Mr. Mrs. Farmer, Miss Grower, perhaps you shouldn't be doing it like this. Perhaps you should be doing it over here. And what about succession? Are you tripping over those elements as well?
I very much hope so. I mean, I've worked in a sector where we never ever got any support. We had to, you feed yourself. If 3 of the businesses I ran when I started there, we were losing money. And that's very real when you're worrying, how am I going to pay the wages at the end of next month? But by luck or by judgment, managed to turn all of those businesses into growing,
Brilliant.
profitable businesses. So yeah, I hope there is something that I've got to add to that.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one, John. Again, I'm bored of saying it, that I don't want to cross the line, but we had Emily Norton, chairman of the AHDB on recently, and she was sort of indicating farmers shouldn't rely on government. And there's always been this thought that government's got to save us because we feed the nation. But John, all the businesses that you've intimated, you've been in, you had no help. And I think that's a quite good mentality to have within UK farming and horticulture. Don't expect help. Make a plan. Create success. We've had so many people on, Mark, like Jamie from Meon Springs, who runs a fantastic dairy down in Hampshire, and they're doing glamping, and they're doing corporate training now. A dairy doing corporate training. They just looked at other skill sets that they've got, and they've made a plan, and they've done other things. So again, it's interesting, John, that you and British Growers, you can be that supporting arm, but you can also be a critical friend to the growers. I suppose that's the key thing about the likes of your conferences, John, that people can come and learn from everyone else. Everyone's got the same problems, John, really, haven't they? So if they've got other people who are a couple of years in front and created solutions, and our sector is very charitable, they'll be able to share that information.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what circumstances you're in. You're looking for an edge, aren't you? You're looking for, what makes me different, what's going to give me a margin. There are loads and loads of good people out there, but you need a plan behind it, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe they need a bit of, we saw that at the Oxford Farming Conference earlier this year. That farmers, need, they need to look at what they're doing and have a plan behind it.
Yeah, yeah, and the Princess Royal 2 years ago at Oxford Farming Conference said, "I'm really enjoying this, but no one's mentioned the P word, profit. There's nothing wrong with profit. You've all got to make profit so that you can reinvest. I want to hear more about profit." So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, from a personal point of view, that's probably, if you ask me what's my sort of the one challenge for me moving into British Growers Association, which is a not-for-profit organisation, member-owned, I'm used to making a profit. I'm used to waking up every day thinking, right,
yeah,
where's the next pound coming from? And now it's a different slant for me in terms of, well, what can I do for our members?
Yeah. So come on, Mark. What else? How else can we hold John's feet against the fire to find out more as to what we can learn from him?
Yeah, no, this is really intriguing, and your move from finance into manufacturing into kind of senior leadership, and those skill sets bring in 3 businesses back from the brink. In those kind of areas, I'm sure in kind of efficiency, consistency are kind of everything within managing those businesses. What disciplines and practices from those learnings do you think we could adopt and think about in farming and growing, and probably could benefit us most from those turning those businesses, from the brink? What would you advise? What would your thoughts be?
Having said I didn't know what I wanted to do in my career, I always felt in finance you're just a small cog in a big wheel of finance professionals. When I moved into an SME, I found my passion, which is business, understanding that if I made a difference to the firm that I was working for, it would grow, and then I would benefit from that. Not just in salary, but in experience. And that's like, well, wow, there's no limit then, is there? You can just keep going. And that doesn't matter whether it's a pet food company or an agricultural business. The same can be said. Unfortunately, there's no silver bullet. Most of it, I would say, is hard work. You as I come back to, you do need a good plan. You do need you can't just say, well, I'm good and I'm honest and I'm hardworking, therefore it will work. That isn't going to sway. You do need a good plan behind you.
So John, here's a loaded question. People, we often say this saying on this broadcast that said the best thing about running a business is employing people. The worst thing about running a business is employing people. There's a internet business that's recently dismissed all of their HR team because they said that they added no value. And then on the other side, we've got a mill. I'm trying to find out where it is. Somewhere in the UK that's just taken on a 72-year-old as an apprentice because they couldn't find anyone of the 20 to 30-year-old generation. Oh, John, you know where I'm going with this one. How can we attract more people to come into the sector and to enjoy it, knowing it's going to be very fulfilling, but it's going to be hard work, but it's going to be very fulfilling, and you can have a great career. But John, what's the magic dust to attract more people into the sector from your experience of other sectors?
Look, it's a huge challenge, isn't it? I mean, you just made me think there. When I first started out in my career, somebody said to me, "You've got one employee, they're perfect. You've got two, one's better than the other," and so on and so on and so on and so on. And things have changed over the years, and I'm very lucky. I've been a director 30 years now. I did start very young, and been a managing director 25 years now. And definitely things then were very different. People had different motivations. If you offered overtime at the weekend, there was a queue at the door. Wow. It's not like that. It's not like that anymore. And that's not saying that things are worse or better. It's different. And from a leadership point of view, from a people point of view, if you're running any business, you've got to adapt to that. I use the words emotional intelligence a lot in terms of leadership. You're only going to be the best if you're really good at managing your people and looking after your people. Absolutely. Getting new people in, well, you've got to show that there's some fulfillment. And I'm making this up, but I bet if you wound the clock back 30 years, most people went to work just to get money.
Yep.
And that's not the case anymore. People want fulfillment, and I think we've got to show in agriculture and horticulture that we can provide that, and I think we can.
Yeah. And John, well done. Here's a big question. Say you're at your big British Growers Conference, and you're in the Q&A, and someone says, I'm not a particularly good leader, but I know I need to be a good leader, and I can't find a course to find out how to lead. John, advise me. How can I become a good leader for my farming business, for my horticultural business? What would you say?
But by listening and learning from as many people as you can.
Yeah, well done.
But I still think experience. Don't be afraid to do it and get it wrong. Like you can go to school for as long as you like. I never did an MBA, and I remember asking the opinion of somebody who'd sold a very successful business and said, I'm thinking about going off and doing an MBA. And he said, John, like, you're running a business, you're doing it.
Yeah,
like,
well done.
what do you want to go back to school for? Live it. And I think that's great advice.
Yeah, but and going back a bit, I'm going to show off on Mark's behalf. Mark, can you just describe your young man and his Twickenham adventure, and how early he was getting up and how old he was to go, if that's okay to do that? And I'm going to give you an example I've got as well. Go, Mark.
Yeah, no, well, my son wants to be an elite sports turf groundsman. So by hook or by crook, and we won't go into the decent stories, he now works part-time around his college at the Allianz Stadium, Twickenham, and yeah, he gets the 5:10 train from the village here, 3 days a week, up into the city, does his day's work, comes back, and loves it. For the first year he did it completely voluntary, and now they've taken him on as a part-time employee. But it's the connection, yeah, it's phenomenal.
Fantastic. And then I'm going to show off as well, because I've got one not dissimilar. I've got an 18-year-old who's farming mad, and this morning he was out the door at 5:10 to irrigate 50 acres of potatoes. And I asked him the other night, why do you like doing this? And I hardly finished the question. He said, because I love it. I just thought that was and again, it's nothing about. There's nothing wrong with being involved with the ball bearing sector, or John, I'm desperately trying not to say accountancy, or being a solicitor. But there's something really unique about ground care, Mark, or horticulture. And again, John, I don't know how we emphasize that to attract the younger folk in, and so that they can start learning to lead, and so that they can become our leaders of the future. But I'm guessing British Growers, you see that all the time, and so you're constantly positively influencing people on that basis.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, if you said to me, how am I getting on British Growers? I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah. It doesn't matter how many hours in the day that I'm working. Yeah, I absolutely love it. I do feel like, hopefully we are making a difference.
Yeah, excellent. Just I'll go on, Mark. Sorry.
No, you go for it, Mike.
Just on that side, British Growers. And where are you for the rest of the year? We were talking just before we went live about all these shows. Where can we see the work of British Growers if we want to find out more?
Well, we do speak and go to a lot of events. As I said earlier, I think we punch well above our weight. Yep. So yeah, you'll see us all over the place, speaking at different events. Yeah, we try to make ourselves as visible as possible.
Yeah, I'm covering the British Leafy Salads Association Open Day. I think it's the beginning of July up in Shropshire, and really looking forward to that. Mark, you've got to come. There's going to be about 300 people looking at lettuce. It's going to be amazing.
Fantastic. Book me a ticket.
One of the things I've said to many people is we organise a lot of events. I think we've got something like 22 in the calendar for the rest of this year. But we're seeing every event is getting record attendances. Every time we're doing it. I think people do want to collaborate. They do want to learn. And that's a great thing.
Yeah, I'm just going to show off on behalf of one of your colleagues, John. I was covering an event for photography, and Princess Royal was there, and your colleague Pauline was doing because she was one of the major organisers, and the Princess Royal clocked Pauline, and there was this like understanding between each other, because they work together in the future. Come on, Mark. How else can we hold John's feet against the fire?
It's really interesting. I wrote loads of notes, and you talk about leadership and learning it, and just having a go and making mistakes. I love a quote from a previous guest, Shimmy Alcott, is only ever win or learn. And I think that's really, really important, that you need to fall forwards and you need to make a few mistakes and you need to give stuff a go. But from your perspective, John, as the outsider, as the accountant and the senior leader in manufacturing, what do you feel that UK farming, UK growing businesses, where do they underestimate themselves? What are the elements that you feel that we really aren't shouting about enough, and we really underestimate us as businesses?
I think that's yeah, that's really interesting. From my time in pet food, um, I've seen some really great manufacturers who are not very good marketeers, and I mean, this is particularly in pet food. There are some great marketeers that don't make a thing. For example, there's a business, Lily's Kitchen, started by started by a marketeer, grew rapidly, sold out to one of the major global players. Never made a bag or a can. It's interesting in horticulture and agriculture. What are we? Are we just manufacturers? Are we not marketeers? And what do we learn? What do we need to learn to be? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
Totally. Totally. Well, there's that standard stat that the NFU used to or still use, that 6 out of 10 kids don't know where fruit and veg comes from. But gents, is that our job, or is that the retailer's job, or is it a union? John, it's sort of a comment rather than a question. And it's also, it's a shame, but it's also a huge opportunity, because as we all know, fresh food does us good. It's a bit like going back to Mark's colleague Grace yesterday. Everyone's aware that ultra processed foods are bad for us, and fresh produce is good. Jamie Oliver was on the radio the other day promoting his 2026 barbecue book, and he was asked by the commentator as to where are you with your healthy eating campaign. And you could just hear him sigh on the radio and say, we've been doing it for 15 years, but that our biggest problem, without crossing the line again, we have is government, that we can't influence government. But it comes back to what Emily was saying about don't rely on government. And you think, John, of all the great work that British Growers is doing, I suppose it's just building on that so that we gain more penetration. John, you have a great relationship with the likes of Veg Power, which has been. Do you want to just give everyone a bit of an understanding as to Veg Power and your association with them?
Well, I think the work that Veg Power have done over the years has been great. They're trying to raise the profile of healthy eating, and specifically getting children to. I think that's probably, if I had one wish for the UK, it would be that people start to value food more again.
Yeah.
We know that we maybe spend less than other nations on food. We spend less of our own disposable income on food. We spend less time on food, and we've over time we've got to try and change that, haven't we?
Yeah, yeah. And coming back to poor old Grace from the AHDB, her commentary yesterday, that it's getting so expensive to eat out that actually people are working out that's cheaper to eat in, so they're buying more fresh ingredients. So it's sort of bizarrely, gents, the market is coming towards us.
no.
Sorry.
I was going to say that the points that we're all raising here, and the points that you bring, going back to the original question about what do we underestimate ourselves, we don't know what we're good at, and whether a manufacturer or marketing. That's like some of the work that we're doing at AHDB, particularly around eating healthy diets, is how you change that perspective to engage with the consumer that is thinking about food in a very, very different manner to what we do as producers. And like our campaign, We Eat Balanced, it's not about saying you need to eat vegetables, or you need to have a vegan diet, or you need to just eat meat to get your B12. It's about, we need to eat a balanced diet, and we need to eat healthily, and what you include in that diet, as long as it's Britishly grown produce, whether that be your proteins, whether that be your fruit and veg, that's what you need to be doing. So it's interesting, the points that you make there about understanding what we're good at and where we need to push areas forward.
Yeah, I mentioned I just come back from Indonesia. I had a lovely conversation with a lovely lady out there who was trying to understand our culture compared to her own, in terms of, she was saying, well, I go to the market every single day to buy food, and eating out is more expensive than cooking at home, so I cook at home. If I'm short on money, I don't go out. I'm preparing it myself. The funniest thing was, she just couldn't get her head around why we have dishwashers.
Well, speaking for yourself, I've got two. No, I haven't. No. But John, it's very similar to going back to this conversation with Jamie Oliver. He recently did a trip to India, and he asked someone on a political basis how are you getting on with your 5 a day type of campaign, because in the UK we're struggling a bit. And the chap looked bemused and said, "What?" So Jamie explained it to him, and he said, "Well, in India it's a minimum of 10 a day. Everyone eats 10 a day." So again, it's like that cultural thing. How can we get more people to eat more of your members' product, John? And it's not a question; it's a comment. We all know where it needs to be. Mark, do you think there needs to be more collaboration with the likes of Veg Power, AHDB, British Growers, and all the? We've got so many fantastic trade groups, but. So I suppose it's a question for both of you, but Mark, let's start off with you. Are we all pointing in the same direction, or are we just all shooting off in different directions and wasting resources? Mark, what do you think?
I think as a whole, and this is very broad, we are kind of all going in the same direction, but maybe we've all got different versions. We're using different sat navs to get to that point, which, don't get me wrong, that's right. But collaboration, I think, as we move forward, is an absolute key to see success, because yeah, if a lot of people talk about the same thing, there's a lot bigger voice, and how it will hopefully be able to change the dial, because it's such a complex challenge. Change is hugely difficult to navigate. And when we're talking what we're trying to change, into even if you think about diets or how consumers value food, it's huge.
Yeah, but not unachievable.
No,
I think
definitely not
not unachievable. And like I carry around a huge comparison against pet food, where I spent most of my career. Of course, with pet food, the person buying the food is not the person consuming it.
No.
And yet, value of pet food has increased hugely over the last 20 years. Hugely. I can remember an American brand coming into the market in the late 90s. And saying, no one's going to pay that for that, but yet they did, and so why did they? I'm also quite. You commonly hear me say, pet food is made up of agricultural byproducts to the largest extent, but yet it's probably sold for 3 times the value. Why is that? Because consumers value it, don't they?
Yeah. So on that side, John, do we need to have a stronger relationship with the retailer? Because the retailer are very good at what they're doing. Whatever the figure is, 82% of all fruit and veg is sold in the retail sector. But we all know the stories about a bag of carrots for 4p on the run up to Christmas. John, with your background outside of the sector, is there anything that you can see that we could influence the retailers to up the cost to the benefit of the grower? And I'm obviously looking at the issues that we've got geopolitically at the moment, of the conversations going on with government and retailers, asking retailers to lock down prices. But it does seem, as a great comparison, pet food, agricultural byproducts, and fresh produce, we haven't really seen any price increases over the. What's the answer, John?
Yeah, I mean, it's consumer perception, isn't it? That we need to change over time. And I think, whether it's AHDB or British Growers or Veg Power, we are. I agree with Mark. We are all working in the same direction, and so are the retailers. Absolutely. I mean, the government are pushing on the retailers to try and help make the nation healthier. So yeah, they're part of it.
Yeah, Mark, your thoughts?
No, it's I think collaboration and pushing forwards together is something that we just need to continue doing, and keep aligning those objectives and outcomes, and yeah, we will turn the dial at some point. We've talked a little bit about what you see in terms of our biggest surprises and areas for development. What do you think are the opportunities moving forward? People need to eat on a day-to-day basis, and people value, and we've heard from the work that some of we've done in terms of, they value the farmer, the grower, in terms of a trusted individual. Where are the opportunities for UK farming and UK growing to improve that kind of resilience, performance, and push things forward?
Well, whilst we talked earlier about farming, agriculture not having handouts, I do think there's a role for the government to play in terms of helping turn the dial in terms of healthy eating, in terms of education. I do think there's a role there for the government to play. I do think, I mean, it is looking long term, but I do think the power is in the farmers' hands because they've got the land. And I know over the last few years, everyone's talked about how well Amazon have done by controlling the last mile. I do think in the long term that will flip to, well, it's who's got the land who provides the food, and if we need the food, well, we're going to have to go to the land to get it, aren't we? It'd be interesting to see how climate change plays a role in that, because at the moment, as we're all aware, we import a huge amount, but that might not be the case in. Well, yesterday I was at an event talking about the 25-year farming roadmap. It will be really interesting to see where are we in 25 years. I actually think things will slowly get better.
Yeah, and also the level of sophistication that's also coming into the sector. John, we've used as an example, if it's okay to name check, there's an amazing project on a horticultural basis, Rivenhall in Essex, where there's a Belgium recycling business has built a £500 million plant that is recycling all of the black bin waste from Essex, and they generate carbon and electricity from burning that waste. And there's a planning permission was granted 2 weeks ago for, oh John, you'll probably remember better than I, 40 hectares of glass that's going to be powered by the energy from the waste site and the carbon. So it's sort of off grid, and if it works, it's going to supply 7% of the salad needs for the UK. So that means it won't be coming in from the likes of Spain and Morocco. And they've thought of everything. They're going to have a creche there for 500 kids. Is it 500 kids or 250 kids? Because there's a barracks nearby, and they want all the soldiers' wives to come and work. So they've thought about this. Here comes the words circular economy, and they've got plans potentially for 3 other sites. So John, yes, it's totally what it's sort of evolution, not revolution. We can't keep on beating ourselves up. If we actually we know what the issue is, don't we? That we need to be more self-reliant. And if we've got people like yourself and like the guys behind Rivenhall, and everyone can see where that's going and not be parochial about it, it's going to be a win-win. John, would you agree?
Yeah, one of the things we're good at is innovation and technology, isn't it? It's one of the things the UK has a good history on, and yeah, I think maybe some people might say it's been slow to come in horticulture and agriculture, but I think with an emphasis on it, and it is part of the government's manufacturing strategy. I think we'll see bigger leaps forward.
Yeah. So John, on that side, what do you want from your membership, and also just agriculture, fresh produce per se? Because I suspect sometimes you and your colleagues might feel like you're shouting into a wood, and we know those diehards who always be saying, "Oh, we want more from government." But what do you want from the sector to assist you to oil this plank to make this make this flow smoothly, so it's going to be better? What do you need from us all, John? What do you need from us to make the sector sing?
I think positively. I think we've got most of it.
Wow.
That structure of British Growers Association sitting on top of the crop associations, and most of the crop associations have got great engagement from the grower base. I think that's there, and I think government is listening. I think the NFU do a great job, and we work very closely with them as well. So yeah, I think dialogue and sense of direction is probably better than it's been in a long time.
Yeah, and I've just had a message about we must promote British Tomato Week, which I'll just quickly look up in a minute. Mark, hold John's feet to the fire again. Just whilst I look up British Tomato Week, go.
No, there's some really good points that's coming out of this conversation that we're chatting around planning, around knowing your numbers, around focusing on the things that you're really good at, but also identifying the areas where it could add value, like the whole manufacturing, marketeering pieces like that. What's kind of, we've touched on it slightly, but what's the biggest surprise that you've seen as you've walked into this horticulture growing sector? what is the biggest thing that surprised you about the sector, which you weren't expecting coming from your previous career?
How complex it is, and it's, you know, I said my opinions have changed on, you know, agriculture is just business, and saying it's not. Just how complex horticulture is, and I'd be absolutely sure consumers don't understand that, and we need to keep pushing that message as well. I mean, if I just pick on vining peas, the complexity of choosing, you know, when the pea goes in the ground, and, you know, what side of the hillside it's on, and, you know, so that you know exactly what day you're going to go and get it at exactly the right tenderness. Actually, from an amateur allotment holder who's been getting it wrong for years, it makes me feel so much better, because, you know, if they've got such a challenge and they're professionals, well, it's okay that I make a complete mess of it, isn't it? So yeah, it's that complexity, and you know, we should shout about what a great job we're doing on that. You know, providing fresh produce day in, day out to the right quantity, into retail is an incredible job, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep. Mark, can I just jump in? Talk about fantastic marketing. So British Tomato, I thought it was a week. I've only been in the sector for 30 years. It's 2 weeks. Well, instead of having 1 week, it's 2 weeks. That's so mercurial. British Tomato Fortnight 2026 takes place from the 1st to the 14th of June, organised by the British Tomato Growers Association. The campaign highlights the sustainability, nutrition, and unbeatable flavour of homegrown crops. I've just got to name drop Richard Diplock, who's the managing director of the Sussex Greenhouse, as he said once in one of a previous broadcast. If you can get a young person and to eat a tomato and enjoy that taste, you'll have them for life. Sorry, Mark. Back over to you. Mark. Oh, go, John.
We should also give Tomatoes a plug, because they'll be at Farm Fest tomorrow, and over the weekend. So yeah, get yourselves down and have a look at some great British tomatoes at Farm Fest.
Excellent. Mark, do you like tomatoes?
I do like tomatoes. I do like a lot of things, which is, yeah, it's all good. But the point you make about the vining peas, that's really, really valid in terms of the complexity that goes in to what probably most people will just grab a bag out of the freezer to have with their roast or whatever. That to get that standardized product is massively difficult, and that goes across whether you're milking a cow, whether you're growing wheat, and I think that's something, again, that, as you alluded to, we need to shout about some of these things that we are good at, and we are very adaptable. Even if we don't have the clearest of plan or strategic aims, farmers are pretty resilient as individuals, that keep standing up when they get punched down for the various challenges, whether that can just even be the weather, let alone anything else that's going on in the world. So in terms of some of your leadership learnings, and we've talked about complexity, what effective leadership methods, learnings would you use of how we deal with that complexity and those competing interests, and how do you lead through those kind of challenges?
Again, I guess I'm repeating myself a little bit. It's all up, like, you know, there are loads of good examples of people to learn from. You know, establish a network. You know, make friends with people, and pick up all the good things from them. You know, they're all out there. And I think I bore people by talking about all the anecdotes that I've picked up from people along the way, but that's the best way to do it. It absolutely is. Although I think we touched on it a little bit earlier. You know, I spent a lot of time running factories, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can't forget that necessity to push on the detail of the efficiency, because in FMCG you are always looking at tomorrow, how do I do it slightly faster, slightly better, slightly cheaper. You know, you can't take away from that. Somebody said to me very, very early in my career, if you've got a factory, doesn't matter what it's making or what you're selling it for, make sure it's the most efficient factory. And I think that's really good advice. You know, keep pushing on that detail. For example, and maybe it's because the margin has been in pet food, that I feel it's very technically advanced. When I started, it took 4 men to put the product in a bag. Now it takes 4 men to run the whole factory. And we've got to not forget that in agriculture and horticulture, that we've got to keep driving on that.
Yeah, John, it's very interesting what you say. Mark and I recently did a broadcast with the South of England Technical Forum, Mark, and Mark, I've forgotten his name, the fantastic dairy farmer.
Keith Goo from Huddleston Holsteins.
And he was saying, John, about how much work they could. It's a rubbish analogy about if you could be 1% better every day. Imagine by the end of the year how. And with their dairy, help me, Mark. They were talking about having straight lines for various, because there was so many repetitive movements that even the animals were doing, and they were always looking for those straight lines to garner that 1%. So yeah, it's not just looking at the 5-year plan. It's also looking at the day to day to better yourself. Jez, we're slightly running out of time. John, I'm going to hold your feet to your fire. We're going to get you back on in say 5 years' time. What will you and your colleagues? What do you want to have achieved by then? That old analogy about jump for the stars, and you might touch the ceiling. What would you like British growers to achieve? That's going to be really beneficial to your members, to British growers, and the sector as a whole. What are your take homes that you want to achieve for the next 5 years?
A really good working network of how the crop associations all work together and get their voice told. There are a lot of groups within agriculture and horticulture. I come from a sector where there's maybe two, one for manufacturers and one for retailers. So there's it's quite hard for agriculture and horticulture to get together. But as I said, it's there and it's coming, and I think it will get better. And ultimately, the goal of that is, as we said before, more consumption of fruit and veg in the UK, and more fruit and veg being grown in the UK. I mean, now is the time. I think better that more than ever before. We've seen it in the farm profitability review. We're seeing it out of things coming out of government now. Horticulture is lucky. We've been picked for the first DEFRA growth sector plan. So there's the opportunity. I hope in 5 years' time we're going to see the benefits of that.
Yeah. And have you got a good team, John? Have you got a good team to back this up?
My team at British Growers, yeah, I've got an excellent team.
They're fantastic.
It's a real challenge of what kind of person is the right person to work at British Growers, and we're a small team. There's only 20 of us, and a lot of us have got a finance background, but really it's you've got to have a passion.
Yeah.
You've got to have that desire to not just turn up 9 till 5. You've got to really invest in it, and hopefully people can see that our team do.
Yeah, no, your team. It was a very leading question, and your team are brilliant. Having watched them and been involved with them with Jack on and off for 20 odd years, it's a fantastic team in what you're achieving. Mark, do you want to wrap up for us?
Yeah, no, John, thank you so much. We could have probably gone on for another hour, but it's been really insightful to just understand some of your experiences and insights from outside of industry and accounting and pet food and manufacturing, in terms of what we can learn in our rural sectors, from the point of knowing your numbers and being adaptable to the point of continually trying to drive efficiency and improvement, which I think that's one thing that maybe we neglect a little bit in our industry, that because great grandfather and great grandmother have done it that way, that's how we need to be doing it. But as we move forward, we need to innovate, we need to become more efficient and continue to drive the whole thing forward. And then you talked a little bit about surrounding yourself with good people, not being afraid of putting yourself out there and maybe making a mistake, and actually learning from that. And I think that's a really valid point in terms of, you only know what you know, and there's a lot of very, very good people within us in our sectors that you can learn from and align yourself to, and actually draw on those experiences. So John, thank you very much for being our guest on our 55th broadcast.
Thank you.
And John, we're not going to let you off scot-free. I don't recognise the WhatsApp number, but it's a chat from Shropshire, said really enjoyed the broadcast. Could John describe his best 3-course meal with a heavy bias towards what British growers represent? So I presume he means sort of veg and the. So what describe your ideal 3-course meal, which is going to promote the British growers' various associations. Describe that meal. Go.
I thought I was going to get away with that question of what's your favourite fruit or vegetable, because like, as I always say, I love them all. Like, this is with no disrespect to any other fruit or vegetable. Definitely for me, a main course is going to involve cauliflower. Maybe slightly unfashionable, but definitely. I do have a love of fine dining, and it's amazing what you can do with a tomato. So probably a tomato-based starter, cauliflower in the main course, and fruit for a dessert. Or what would it be?
I'm not letting Mark. I'm not letting you off scot-free because you're on.
I'm probably going to go with gooseberry.
Do you know? I thought you were going to go for rhubarb. Mark, go on with a bias towards your love of dairy, but also fruit and veg. Go, Mark. Describe your ideal meal, 3-course meal.
Oh, my ideal meal would probably be something seafood based to start on the Channel Islands. And we could go with some tomatoes or things like that. My main course would be British beef with a British potato, and my dessert would be something like a panna cotta, and it'd have to be with raspberries. Raspberries by far are my favourite fruit.
Wow, guys! I've got an idea here. We could make a menu of leaders. There you go.
There we go.
New catchphrase. John, you're brilliant. Mark, you're brilliant. Thank you very much, and we wish British growers all the best for this year with everything that you're doing, and for the next 5 years. And we look forward to having you on, John. I can't do the maths in 5 years' time to find out how you've all battered it out of the park.
Look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.